An absolutely insane amount of SPY calls hit the tape just 1 hour before the closing bell on Friday, ahead of a weekend where Trump is expected to make a big trade deal with the EU. Also, millions worth of short-dated MSTR calls were added, betting on more Bitcoin upside within days. All that and much more in today's video, so make sure to subscribe and like it below. Let's get started. So quite the eventful week between all of this SPY flow that you can see here that I'm going to talk about in a second, as well as some other things like Trump and Powell meeting each other. That was a very awkward conversation, but also was hilarious.
So we're taking a look, and it looks like it's about 3.1 billion. It went up a little bit, or a lot. So the 2.7 is now 3.1.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, it just came out.
Regardless, we have a lot to break down today. Going back to the flow over here, of course, what you guys are going to be the most interested in and the most interesting thing to happen last week was an hour before the close, hour to hour and a half, as you can see with the timestamps here in Eastern time, we had all of these prints come in. And there's a couple things that make these super unusual. They're highly unusual, hence why they are highlighted here on Cheddar Flow in blue. First of all, a lot of premium behind each one. 5.1 million in premium, 1.7 million in premium, 2.3 million, 1.1 and 1.5, all of them back to back to back. The fact that these have this much premium and also were continuous prints, so they all came in together, is very bullish. We love to see when there are continuous prints coming in, not just one or two prints, just a lot of them all at once in back-to-back fashion. So that's the first thing. Second, they are all out the money. The strike of these is 643, as you can see here, and the spot price that they bought them was 637 roughly. So these are very bullish because they're out the money reaching, plus they also have a very short-dated expiration that expires this week. So not only are they out the money, they have a short-dated expiration, so they expect a very quick move, otherwise they're not getting paid. And then on top of that, it's a bunch of premium behind it. So you could also see here in the order details tab that the majority of these came in above or at the ask. So these were bought. These are directionally significant in that case, and the volume just completely trumps the open interest in this case. So very aggressive buying going into the close on Friday. They're expecting something to happen very soon. And honestly, their expectation is probably going to be based on the US-EU trade deal that we're expected to have news of today on Sunday as I'm recording this. You guys might even know by the time this video comes out. Regardless, this is one of those classic setups where it's a potential insider knows what type of news is going to come out. So I'm definitely going to watch these call prints going into this week, especially the open interest to see when they close it. Also, a couple other prints from last week. For example, here, 1.3 million for the 640 strike. Also very bullish, kind of that aggressive bullish nature. And then only one on Friday, a $1.4 million 635 put. So really nothing, all things considered, and compared to all of this. And I guess this is the other one here, 1.6 million for the 600 strike. A little bit more bearish in that regard. But again, this is just a singular order. It's just by itself compared to all of these and the amount of premium that these have. So very, very bullish positioning that we saw on Friday. I'm going to bring you to the chart to show you what I'm looking at there. So the S&P 500 has been a runaway train for really the past month now, and honestly the entire summer at this point, since the tariff fiasco that we saw between March and April. And what I'm looking at here is a couple of things technical wise. One, we do have an ascending wedge pattern over here, so pretty basic technical pattern. You can see that it did close roughly on it on Friday over here. You can see the top end of this pattern can be drawn like so. Could find a couple variations to this. For example, this would be one potential top since we touched it over here. And you also could drag it down and have it go across so it touches this. So it doesn't matter really which one you choose because both end up having an ascending pattern. It needs to break out either to the upside of this, either with a gap up or some type of strong push come Monday, or you're going to see a breakdown and it's going to go down to likely, and my expectation would be some type of Fibonacci retracement of this range. So you'd likely see something like a 630 to 632 before a potential for a bid off that level. Additionally, there is a very strong support around this previous supply zone, which we can draw over here. You can see all of this acted as supply. When we attempted to break out above, it kind of formed a mini range in a sense from over here. And you could optimize it a bit more to even fit this area. That's what I'm going to hold it as. There's two variations here too, kind of like this ascending pattern. One here because of this rejection, and then also where it found support as it broke out. But I prefer to optimize it a bit more for just good risk reward if/when we do retest it in the future. So this is the range I'm going to use, roughly between 626 to 628. And once this is retested in the future, future will act as a demand zone. So there's two potential buy the dip opportunities. Even though I know we are very far up in the market, still can continue with this momentum, especially with that flow I just showed you earlier. So if there were to be some type of a dip, I'm looking at around 630 as to 632 as that first potential buy spot here. Otherwise, it will continue to fall down to around here. Both of these should act as bid zones. I see this continuing to grind higher throughout the summer. Of course, seasonality becomes more bearish as we go into September and October for those fall months. But as of now, we still have time, at least 3 or so more weeks before seasonality starts to kick in. So in this case here, I will be continuing to buy the dip, or at least be in buy the dip mode. And also, like I mentioned, that flow does support something like this if it chose to fall. If it doesn't even choose to fall and we just see a gap up because of some type of deal that comes in on Sunday when I'm recording this, then again, we could see something like a gap up above this ascending wedge pattern, maybe a retest of it, and then continuation higher into this 640. So that's what I'm looking at on the SP 500. And I'm going to show you MSTR flow because it was very bullish for last week. So check this out. A lot of premium going into MSTR. Just on Friday alone, you can see 2.2 million in premium, 2.1 million, 1.9 million, all for calls. In this case here, this one was at the bid, but just based on context clues in this case, and also what we can see on the order details tab, the majority of these actually were executed at the ask, and the IV was increasing between the orders for this 430 strike. So they were actually buying this print despite it showing up as sell over here. It's just using context clues, which you always need to do to make sure you understand flow completely. And you can check out a variety of videos that we have on our YouTube channel on that exact topic. But also we can see over here, this 432.5 strike is a little bit higher. They did add a lot of premium for, and this is pretty far out the money. Like they bought the 430 strike at 408, that spot price. They also bought 432.5 strike at 410 spot price. So this is an aggressive bet in a very short dated amount of time. You can see the expiration for this week, very similar to those SPY calls. So somebody's expecting a large move in a very quick amount of time on Bitcoin. Of course, that's what MSTR tracks. And in the past, especially this summer, at least that have been tracking this flow, they've been very right, very consistent for Bitcoin's movement. So aggressive bet, like I said. Let's check out Bitcoin's chart to get a gauge on where this could go. So if you guys have been watching these videos this summer, you know I really like Bitcoin for this trade setup for a variety of reasons. We have a massive inverse head and shoulder here that's formed over the course of this entire year. Also a bull flag breakout. You could see the flag pull right here, followed by this perfect flag, and then a breakout of that, followed by another bull flag, just a mini one over here. You could see that it's flagging the flag pull, same thing, and then the flag over here. And it attempted to break below, but it was a fake breakdown, which makes this even more bullish. Whenever you have a fake breakdown of a range, kind of like we had here with this wick, typically that results in an even stronger squeeze once it does break out. So very bullish in this case here. I do like it a lot, and I even have an arrow here. I'm expecting it to go into the 130,000s, maybe even 140,000 by the end of August. So that's my expectation from a technical perspective. Of course, it's even better now that we see complementing bullish flow on something like MSTR. We also saw a pretty large IBIT call order from Friday as well. That's the ETF, a BlackRock ETF rather, that tracks Bitcoin spot price. So I really like what I see here from a short-term perspective. Based on this pennant, it needs to break above 118,400. Above that level, it finally is able to break above. We have yet to see a break above this level. You can see with this downtrend here, but above here, finally starts its leg to the 103,000. So that's likely what these MSTR whales are betting on. Very nice to see a lot of volume down here absorb a lot of sell pressure, because there was about $9 billion worth of Bitcoin sold over here and only fell about $3,000, which is not that much in the grand scheme of things. You're looking at only a couple percent, all things considered, and it was able to all get absorbed and get picked up back within the pennant. So really like what I see, and I'll continue to be bullish on Bitcoin as long as the technicals and flow support it. So other than that, as always, appreciate you guys watching this video. I'll see you next time.